Hi, everyone. It's Professor Machado again from Latin 101. And today I'm going to talk to you about substantive inflection. So, hopefully, by now, everyone understands what the word inflection means. But if you haven't, go back and watch my earlier video on the inflection system in Latin. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about how we inflect, how we change the endings of substantives, that is, nouns, adjectives, and pronouns, in order to create meaning, right? So we saw this key idea. Inflection means that when we change the endings of words in Latin, they change in function, and that creates their meaning. Okay, and we're looking at these in nouns, pronouns, and adjectives. Okay, one key term that we're going to have to work with is the term declension. Okay, so declension refers to a system of rules that we have for changing the functions and meanings in substantives. Okay, so we decline nouns, adjectives, and pronouns, and their rules for changing are defined by their declension. Okay, so before we get into those rules, one thing we need to know is what possibly can change with substantives. So substantives have three fundamental characteristics. They have case. So case tells you what the function of that substantive is in the sentence. There's the nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative and ablative cases. These are the five most common cases in Latin. Okay, and we're going to talk about the first two, the nominative and the genitive, by the time we get to the end of this talk. We have number, so substantives can be singular or plural. And we have gender. So this is non-biological gender. This is what's called grammatical gender. So words can be either masculine, feminine, or neuter. Okay, so we have these three characteristics for all substantives: case, number, and gender. And it provides us with a little bit of information about each noun, adjective, or pronoun that we're dealing with. And we will then triangulate these three. We'll take all three parts, the number, the case, and the gender, in order to change the meaning of the words, of the substantives that we have. Okay, and we're going to talk about adjectives and pronouns in more detail later. But what I want to talk about first is nouns. Okay, so we have this noun, rex regis, right over here, and how it would appear in a Latin dictionary. Okay, and we call this the dictionary entry of a noun. And this dictionary entry is going to give you a lot of key information that tells us about how this noun is going to change in order to illustrate its change in function and therefore its change in meaning. Okay, so if we look at this word, rex regis, right, king, what all these parts mean is the rex here, that is the nominative singular. Okay, so that's the case and the number of the word rex. We have regis, which is the genitive singular, again, case and number of that word. And then we have this M here, and the M tells us the grammatical gender here, masculine. Okay, and then we follow up with its definition, king. Okay, so every noun's dictionary entry is going to have a nominative singular, a genitive singular, a gender, and then a definition. Okay, and when you see this, what I want you to focus in on is the genitive singular, the second entry, regis. Okay, so regis is going to tell us two really important things. First, it's going to tell us the declension rules that this word follows. So here we see this is ending, and what that tells us is that it is going to be declined using the rules of the third declension. We'll talk about what that means in a second. Okay. Now, the reg, okay, so when we take away the is, the ending from the third declension, that tells us the root that we are going to add endings to in order to form other combinations of number and case, okay? With the one exception of the nominative singular, as you see here, it's rex, which is why we get it. Now, one thing that I'll note is with nouns, the gender is always held constant. So we don't need to worry about gender when we are changing noun endings, okay? A noun's gender will always be constant. So the two factors that we're changing here are case and number. So we're going to talk about the nominative and genitive cases. So I want to show you what it looks like. So if we're taking this word rex, regus, we saw reg is our root, is is our genitive in the third declension. If we want to make it nominative singular, we take that root reg, add es. And if we want to make it genitive plural, we take that same root reg and add the genitive plural ending for the third declension, regum. Okay. So what does this all mean? So the nominative case, okay, is what we call the naming case. It's how you identify something in Latin. You point it out, okay? So the nominative case is used to express a subject in the sentence. So in this first sample here, rex, right, as we've seen, fortis erat, the king was brave, okay? So nominatives are used for subjects, right? They identify, they name the subject of the sentence. They also can function as what is called a predicate nominative, where we identify, we add more naming information about a subject. So here, Hercules is our subject. Hercules was king, okay? King, just as it is here, is in the nominative, but here it's clarifying something about the subject, right? The erat was, right, acts as an equal sign. Hercules was king, okay? The genitive case, we can understand that as the explanatory case. So whenever we see a noun in the genitive, it's always going to be paired with another noun, and it's always going to add more information. It's always going to explain more about the noun it's connected to, okay? So we have here terra regis, okay? So regis here is the genitive singular of the noun rex, okay? And it's working with terra. So terra means land. Land of the king is how we translate it. So that genitive gets translated as of the king, right? It tells us whose land it was. Now, if we have it in the genitive plural, regum here, terra regum means land of the kings, plural, okay? So here we change the ending to make it plural, but it functions, right, in the exact same way because it is in the genitive case, okay? Now, the last thing I want to touch on here is to go back to this idea of declensions, right? I said rex regis, that is ending tells you that you are in the third declension. I want to briefly talk about how we can recognize the other declensions. So our first declension nouns are going to have an AE ending to its genitive singular, and they're almost always feminine. Our second declension nouns are going to have an I ending to the genitive singular, and those can be masculine or neuter. And the third declension nouns have an is ending in the genitive singular, and these can be any genders, okay? If you want to see how they change across the nominative and the genitive singular and plural, please check out our charts on the website, okay? I'll let you look at that in your own time. And I want to suggest a final review exercise. So I have these four nouns here: exemplum, exempli, neuter, example, puer, pueri, masculine, boy, familia, familiae, feminine, family, and nomen, nominis, neuter, name. So I'd like you to take a few minutes, just take a look at these, try to figure out what declension they belong to, and then try to write out the nominative and genitive singular of those two nouns, of those four nouns.